Thank you, Provost Sobiejo. And I want to thank President Leshin also for her introductory remarks. And of course, very happy to have this opportunity to speak to people today, even through this somewhat awkward medium. And I want to thank all of those out there who are following along with our presentations and have joined us today to recognize the launch of the Global School at WPI. Next. As a longtime professor, I've often heard the story of tell people what you're going to say and then tell them what you just said. I'll leave out the last part of this, but I wanted to give an outline of this presentation for the next 10 minutes or so. I want to talk a little bit about the WPI plan now at 50, explain and share the progress we've made in Global Projects for All. And again, I don't want to repeat the Provost's comments, but speak a little bit about the idea of the Global School and the vision for the Global School, the planning we've undertaken in the last year or so, and a statement a little bit about the impactful research that is a part of this plan. Next. WPI Plan was adopted in 1970, and we had at the start of this year, this calendar year, we had made all kinds of plans about how to recognize the 50th anniversary of the WPI Plan. And a lot of that was pushed to the side, unfortunately, by the pandemic. But I want to recognize again today that the WPI Plan was groundbreaking and certainly revolutionary in higher education at the time it was adopted. And it was done so to break out of a sort of a lockstep engineering curriculum that we had that really forced students to take a series of classes, depending on their major, that everyone would take sort of at the same time in the same sequence over their 4 years at WPI. And in 1970, there was really an urgency to ask what the relevancy was in higher education and to try to bring higher education to address the problems of the time in the 1970s and to focus on what we're seeing as important national needs and address also concerns about the rapid growth of technological change with some sense that we didn't understand necessarily what the impact of technology was going to be. Environmental movements, genetic engineering, warfare and nuclear weapons were all seen as technological sort of threats to the environment and to our health and to our safety. And the WPI plan was to give students the opportunity to really focus their learning on their own interests, to foster team-based learning and project-based learning in science and engineering, and to ask students to think about the impacts of technology on society. It also included these elements of liberal education in humanities and arts, and for those who have been around, those alumni or others who've been around longer would recognize that the humanities requirement was built into the WPI plan with a one-on-one sort of tutorial called the sufficiency for each student with a humanities faculty member. That has changed a little bit since then, but our inquiry seminars and our practicum are still an important degree requirement and still an important way to include humanities and liberal learning in the science and engineering program. Obviously, we wanted to promote, as I said before, learning at the intersection of society and technology, and that is really the heart of the interactive qualifying project. The interaction, again, is between science and technology on the one hand and society and human needs on the other. And also, of course, we are engaging students in a capstone project, also team-based project learning in their majors with the major qualifying project. Next. And although this was innovative at the time, I've been in many meetings where people thought we were hiding our excellence in engineering and science education under a basket, and we really needed to share with the world what we were doing. We've gotten much better at that recently, and that's been recognized by the National Academy of Engineering and also the Bernard M. Gordon Prize for Innovation in Engineering Education. And we've done a lot, and we'll share more about this morning, to share our focus on project-based learning with other colleges and universities around the world where there's a great hunger for the kind of educational programming that we do. Next. I want to share with you now some milestones sort of in the global programs and the IQP program. One of the sort of remarkable aspects of the WPI plan was that this focus around project-based learning meant that we would really think about how big should the projects be as part of the curriculum. And the decision was made to make the IQP and the MQP equal to a quarter of the students' junior year and a quarter of the students' senior year. And by that, we decided to break the year into quarters, really, so that students would take 3 courses in a quarter or a term, and a project would be equivalent to a quarter. And that meant if the students were taking a 9 credit hour or 3-course project in one term, they didn't need to do it on campus. And a tremendously important aspect of the WPI plan. So that meant the students could be working in corporations, they could be working in government, they could be working in nonprofits, they could be working off campus to complete a project for a period of 7 to 8 weeks. So in 1974, we began with the Washington Project Center. And for a long time, it was our only project center, and it was so popular that it was running 3 times a year. And as you can see from this slide, by the late 1980s, we opened centers in London and Venice and in Bangkok. Next. And then in the 1990s, these were followed by programs in Puerto Rico, in Costa Rica, Denmark, and Australia. And next, by 2004, WPI was branded. In 1998, WPI established the Interdisciplinary Global Studies Division led by Dean Paul Davis to really focus on the logistics and organization and build out a program that would meet the needs of the students. So as the student demand for study abroad and off-campus project activity grew, we really needed to grow a structure around that to support that. Next. In 2004, WPI was already branding itself as a global technological university. We were running programs in 17 locations around the world. In 2010, we were hosting students at 15 IQP centers, 10 MQP centers, and 2 humanities programs. By this time, we'd also developed humanities, 3-course humanities programs that could be completed off campus in London and Morocco. By 2015, the global program was featured prominently in WPI's strategic plan, Elevate Impact. And we had the goal then of providing all students, essentially all students, with a global project experience, whether that was a humanities project off campus or an IQP off campus or their MQP off campus. And also as part of that strategic plan was the goal of providing financial support for students so that we could alleviate some of the cost of participation in this program. And that resulted in a scholarship of $5,000 that was offered to incoming students in the class of 2022 and following to offset the cost of their participation in the Global Projects Program. Next. Here's a brief slide about our last academic year. By this point last year, we had enrolled over 1,000 students in projects, MQP, humanities, and IQP projects around the world. 59 distinct programs, not necessarily sort of 59 distinct project centers. Some of our projects or centers are popular and run 2 times or 3 times a year, but 59 at least separate programs, 33 countries, and we also are supporting students in other kinds of international travel, whether those are athletic teams or whether they're choral groups or whether they're Engineers Without Borders. We have a lot of students who have been engaged around the world. This current year, we have nearly 1,100 students enrolled in project programs in the IQP program alone. And so we really have come very close to meeting our goal of having all students have an opportunity for some kind of project experience at WPI. Next. I want to say, that went backwards, I think. I want to go the other direction. I want to say just briefly that in 2007, we also introduced the Great Problem Seminar. Chris Wobie is going to speak to this later following me, but I'll say briefly that the Great Problem Seminar is a first-year program to really bring project-based learning into the first year of our curriculum so that students coming to WPI don't have to wait till their junior year to engage in project-based learning on a real dedicated fashion. This is a 2-term course, actually, that culminates with a project presentation day, as it were, a poster session in which the public is invited. Students show up and we have external judges coming to review the project work that students are doing in their first year. Next. That didn't come through well. Oh, here it comes. Oh, I didn't realize. So let's hit all the animation here. That's it. Thank you. want to also say that in 2018, with the development or completion of the Foisy Innovation Center, was the launching of the Global Lab, which is hosted here in the Foisy Innovation Center. The lab energizes WPI's global initiatives through creative scholarship and storytelling, and innovative partnerships that cut across WPI's network of global project centers in the wider community. We engage faculty as Global Lab Fellows to advance scholarship and pedagogy around important global concerns, including project-based learning, community engagement, climate change, adaptation, advancement of women and girls in STEM, and art and social justice. The lab also hosts events on campus, and it trains our students in transmedia work, video work, blogging, photography, podcasting, other kinds of innovative sort of 21st century media techniques so that they can use these media techniques in their project work. And faculty, of course, and staff have access to these resources as well. Thank you. Next slide. I don't want to repeat too much of what Wally said, but I'll say the idea of the global school initially was to build on, as Lori said, the foundations that we have in place. So these foundations are the Great Problem Seminar, the Global Projects Program, the Global Lab, and the partnerships that we have at these 50 or so project center locations around the world with NGOs, with governmental agencies, with museums, with research universities, and to try to bring those partners together in collaborative to produce, again, high-level academic programs, but also high-impact research that our undergraduate students do, research that our faculty does, and the research that our graduate students can do, also in collaboration with these projects. So part of the object of this first year of the Global School is to introduce our partners in different locations around the world to see ways that they can collaborate with us in a broader network of academic and research programming. Next. So the vision for the Global School, and this is actually out of the proposal that was approved by the faculty, is to develop these integrated undergraduate and graduate programs. A few words about that. To foster global partnerships, as I've just explained, and to develop professional graduate programs to prepare globally informed leaders, fostering world-class research into socially conscious solutions for global problems in regions and communities around the world. Next. In this endeavor, we're trying to invite, and we are inviting, all of WPI to participate. So the Global School is a very porous kind of decentralized, in some ways, organization. We are working with the schools already in arts and sciences and engineering and business. Our work is enhanced by interdisciplinary and global studies major, which is largely focused in humanities and social science. Our pre-existing global hubs in China, in Latin America, and Europe, which are hosted by faculty from across the campus. Our networks in Africa, for example, in supporting math and science education for Africa, and our newer initiative this summer in supporting African universities in remote learning, which we'll speak about later this morning. Center for Public Safety, which is Global Public Safety, already established with Tsinghua University in Beijing. And our newest center, the Innovation for Science and Technology for Development, called INSTEAD. So we have a lot of things that are not necessarily managed in the Global School, but are part of the larger global initiatives at WPI that we want to support with the Global School. Next. And we're developing innovative new programs. INSTEAD has already sought approval for, gained approval for, a master's degree in Science and Technology for Innovation in Global Development. This is a collaborative program with Clark University, offering graduate courses in International Studies and Development and our engineering and science departments, so that students can get this interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary sort of degree. Other programs in the planning stage include a master's in global climate adaptation, which is ready for faculty approval at the next meeting of the faculty. They're planning going full ahead in global health graduate degrees and also in transregional studies. The thing that makes these innovative graduate programs, as opposed to traditional graduate programs, is that they have the opportunity to leverage our project centers around the world. So as far as we know, these are the first kinds of graduate programs that will really embed graduate students systematically in project-based learning at a project center, perhaps in Ghana or in South Africa or in Panama or in China or Australia or in Europe. So we're looking now to really be able to publicize these graduate opportunities for students to come to WPI for these master's degrees in theory and practice, right? The theory in the classroom learning and the practice in project-based learning in the field for graduate students. Next. And lastly, and very briefly, I see I'm running over time a little here, but we want to foster impactful research through the global school. And at the grand challenge problems and addressing grand challenge and global problems at the local level. So I want to invite you to learn more about the impactful research by tuning in at 10:30 for a panel of faculty researchers. We'll talk about this work in international development, research in clean energy and sustainability, and also, of course, as Wally mentioned, in health and in circular economy. With that, I want to thank you for your time and attention, and I have the opportunity now to introduce Chris Wobe,